Ukraine is seeking international support against Russia's military buildup along its borders. In an interview with the Reuters news agency, Ukraine's foreign minister says it's important the West acts now to prevent Russia from launching military action. Pro-Russian rebels fought the Ukrainian army to a standstill several years ago in the country's east. DW's Nick Connolly now reports from the Ukrainian city of Mariupol, where people are preparing for war.
Only a few of the older children here can really remember a time without war. Since conflict began 7 years ago, these children have seen parents lose their livelihoods and often their lives. Now they've found stability in this Christian children's home in Mariupol, a city of 500,000 people, just a matter of kilometers from the front lines. Dropping everything and getting to safety in a hurry is what this drill is all about. Russia's troop build-up along Ukraine's borders means these kinds of exercises are once again part of daily life here. For some of the teenagers, though, there's little need to practice.
Back in 2014, I spent 2 months living in our cellar with my mum. I never thought the war would reach us. I remember watching TV. It all just seems so unreal, like something from a film. Then our neighbour's house was hit. We ran down into the cellar for cover, and we were just listening to it all. It was really scary. I was scared the house would collapse around us and we'd be trapped down there.
Back in 2014, Mariupol's frontline suburbs saw the shelling of residential neighbourhoods and dozens of casualties. Nowadays, the front line is still just as close to the city and its residents just as vulnerable. Ukraine's army has made significant strides since 2014, but at sea, where Russian forces are also now massing, Ukraine is still at a significant disadvantage. The crew of this Ukrainian Coast Guard vessel are tight-lipped. All they're willing to tell us is that they've seen increased Russian activity in recent weeks. They're ready and willing, they say, to respond to any possible provocation. Whether or not they expect all-out war, they refuse to say.
Behind me is a ship belonging to Russia's FSB security service, and it's anchored just half an hour's journey off the Ukrainian shore. Ukraine's handful of Coast Guard vessels are hopelessly outnumbered in these waters, and with Russia controlling access to this sea, the Sea of Azov, neither Ukraine nor its allies can send any reinforcements.
For all the military and diplomatic posturing, everyday life here in Mariupol goes on, and can often seem oblivious to all the attention being paid to this region by the outside world.
I have no idea if there will be a war or not, but it definitely doesn't depend on what we do here.
Yes, they're raising tensions now, but I still think this is all about political bargaining.
Everyone here in Mariupol has a suitcase packed with money and essentials in case they need to leave in a hurry. Everyone does.
We're tired of being afraid. That's something people here in eastern Ukraine tell you time and time again. Desperate for a chance to live a little. Even if that won't stop them preparing for the worst as they, like the rest of the world, try to understand what it is Vladimir Putin and his troops have in store for them.
And to find out what that is, I'm now joined by Ben Hodges, a recently retired 4-star general with the US Army. He's now with the Center for European Policy Analysis and nonpartisan think tank. Ben, thanks for joining us. Just how concerned are you by this Russian troop buildup on Ukraine's borders?
Well, Gerhard, I hate to say this, but I think an escalation of violence is imminent. I no longer think this is just a muscle-flexing activity. When I look at the scale of the deployment, the type of equipment and supplies, logistics, redeployment of naval vessels from the Caspian Sea to the Black Sea, this is something more than just an exercise.
So what are the other signs that this is more than just an exercise or just saber-rattling? What would Putin gain there?
Well, first of all, the language coming from the Kremlin. I think that the Kremlin has been preparing the Russian population for an escalation of the conflict for the last few weeks with talk about Ukrainian aggression, the creation of a false pretext about a humanitarian crisis in Crimea, talk about a huge NATO buildup on their border. This is all part of the fairy tale that the Kremlin uses to prepare their own people and to try to justify what they're doing. So it's language, It's the scale of forces. It's the logistics for doing this. I don't think that they intend to go into the Donbass. They already have thousands of Russian soldiers in the Donbass leading and supporting the so-called separatists. I think what they're achieving there, what they want, which is to destabilize Ukraine and make it impossible for Ukraine to join the EU or NATO. The other forces are intended, I think, to increase their control over all of the Sea of Azov and perhaps more of the Black Sea coast.
Do you think a full-scale invasion of Ukraine is on the cards?
Yeah, I don't think when you say full-scale invasion, you're talking about a big red arrow that cuts into the heart of Ukraine. I don't think that's what they're interested in doing. Remember, this really started in 2008 with the invasion of Georgia. They saw that the West did not do anything, and you have Russian troops still sitting in 20% of Georgia. And then the Russians saw that we didn't do anything after the Assad regime crossed President Obama's red line. And then they saw the West didn't really do anything after their invasion of Ukraine in 2014. I mean, other than some sanctions, truthfully, we collectively have done nothing to punish or hold the Kremlin accountable.
Do you think that will change in this particular instance? Do you think NATO is prepared to use military force to oppose Russia here?
No, this is not about NATO. NATO defends NATO, and the alliance has done a great job of ensuring that NATO members are prepared. This is about Berlin, Paris, Brussels, London, and Washington sticking together and holding the Kremlin accountable. And unfortunately, most of the leadership in all of those capitals have been invisible. Even my own president, who started out by saying that Ukrainian sovereignty is a priority, Putin is a killer, and then we immediately follow that up with very weak, incoherent actions. And I think this only emboldens and invites the Kremlin to keep moving until they're forced to stop.
Former U.S. General Ben Hodges, thank you very much for being on our program today.
Thanks for the opportunity.